what we used to call women things. I didn't say that. I said people used to call it that. My dad, of course, would do what people would say would be men things. He was always outside. He's mowing, he's building, he's fixing things. A couple of months ago, my mom broke her leg. And I mean she broke her leg. If they gave out awards for breaking parts of your body, she broke, actually it was all three of the bones in her leg right where they meet at the knee. Yeah, see what I talked about, winning an award? Yeah. So, well, my dad has been doing everything since then. He has been cooking. He has been cleaning. He has been doing the laundry. He said, when I was there, he said, I think your mom has been astonished because, not because I'm doing all of this stuff for her. I love her and she knows I'll do it. But she's astonished that she didn't know I could do all this stuff. And I thought, yeah, that sounds, and I said, well, yeah, I think that you're really surprising your sons too. But I said the biggest thing is that I can't believe y'all aren't fighting more. So Wednesday, when it was ready to get ready for Thanksgiving, he came and said, hey, remember how you said we don't fight? Well, we're about to cook, so you need to get out of the house. So I said, okay, I understand. So yeah, it was a very weird time for me. It was watching my parents as they interacted in these new roles. Well, listen, many of you know in Advent, I like to look at the Christmas story. I feel like it's something that we read over and over again, and it's really kind of lost a lot of its meaning because we just kind of, like we've heard that, been there, done that. And so I like to take either a character or something from the story, and every week I look at it maybe in a different way, maybe in a way that will enhance your own reading when you're reading at Christmas Eve. I don't know. There's no doubt in my mind that the Christmas story is about power. No, it's about Jesus, Pastor Vince, about Jesus. Now, I know that, but Jesus gave up power. That's what makes Christianity so distinct from other religions. See, God becoming human, that's not distinct. People for a long time have seen gods become humans. The Greeks believed that gods transferred back and forth, human God. There were a lot of humans that became gods. Some humans were part human and part God. So I want to make it clear to you, that's not anything distinct about Christianity. Christianity believes that God didn't just become human, but took on human limitations, who became poor and powerless and became vulnerable. We might not just say a human, but a lowly human. Philippians 2, 6 through 7, Jesus, who being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. Though his nature God, took on the nature human. A human who lived on the margins. A human who would eventually be betrayed and killed. But for right now, a human who's a baby. A powerless baby born in a stable. Christmas means nothing if it does not show us that hope is not found in gaining power, but exactly the opposite. Hope is found in giving power away. And to me, that's an incredible thought. God brings hope to the world, not by becoming more powerful so that we can say, oh my gosh, look at my God, how mighty my God is. My God can defeat anything else. But God brings hope by becoming less powerful, by giving it away, by humbling God's very self, not in order to rule, but in order to establish relationship. Well, there's another very powerful figure that I want us to look at today in the Christmas story. And for that, we turn to the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew reports that there were magi who went to worship Jesus. We call them wise men. The magi were astrologers, and we call them wise because they were thought to be wise. They were thought to have magic. They were thought to be able to see the future by studying the stars. And they saw this bright star that was brighter than all others, and it rested over Bethlehem, so they followed that star through many miles, and for some reason then, a funny thing happens, and they get lost. And they instead go to Herod and say, man, we followed the star for so long, but now we have no idea where it's sending us, and so Herod had to give them directions. That's actually not what happens, though. In our Christmas stories, we place the star right over where Jesus lay. We sing, "This star drew nigh to the northwest, o'er Bethlehem it took its rest. And there it did," come on, you know this, "both stop and stay right over the place where Jesus lay." It makes a good story that the star was right over Jesus. It guided people to Jesus, but that's not what the Scripture actually says. We misread it. This is Matthew 2:2. The Magi said, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star rise in the east and have come to pay him homage," or homage, however you like to pronounce that. I've found out I pronounce it differently than some people. And so when they saw the star, they naturally went to Herod to find out exactly where they needed to go. I've heard it said the Magi we call them wise men, but they weren't so wise. They should have never gone to Herod. Why would you go to the current king and say, "Hey, we're going to see the new king. Do you know where he is?" Later we find out that after not being able to find Jesus, Herod goes and has all the kids 2 years old and younger that are in Jerusalem or Bethlehem killed. And one commentator mentioned that, well, it was really the fault of the Magi that happened, or at least it was partially their fault because they had gone to Herod, and if they wouldn't have, that never would have happened. However, the story indicates that they didn't go to the wrong place when they went to Herod. In fact, that's exactly where they were supposed to go. The star led them there. The Magi see the star, they go to worship Jesus, but first they had to make a stop. To stop and ask Herod, where is that star leading us? Now, there's two Herods in Jesus' life, so I don't want you to get confused. There's Herod the Great, and that's who we're talking about here. And then there's his son, Herod Antipas, and he was the king when Jesus died. Well, Herod the Great was called that for exactly why you would think he was called that. He was great. He was one of the most powerful and feared people in the ancient world. He was very cunning, very political. If you remember the Roman civil wars, remember Julius Caesar, et tu, Brute? Did you ever have to say that? You learned that in Shakespeare? Okay, I had to repeat that speech. And anyway, when I was in high school. So yeah, Herod and his father were very close with Julius Caesar. When Julius Caesar was stabbed by Brutus and the Senate, Herod went to Brutus and said, "Whew, I am so glad you did that. Man, I would have had to follow that guy, but now I'm on your side. I've always been on your side." So he got promoted. And then Mark Antony got mad at Brutus for that and killed him. And of course, Herod said, "Whew, sure, I'm glad you did that. I had to fake like I was being loyal to him, while really I was still loyal to your side." And then, of course, Mark Antony gets defeated by Caesar Augustus, and Herod says, "Hey, remember when I was really close with your father?" Well, I was always really close, and so he got promoted again. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to play people. He was a masterful politician. People did not love him, but people feared him a great deal. He was paranoid. He got, especially towards the end of his life, he killed anyone who he thought was against him. In fact, and here's kind of a neat story. This is a word play in Greek. The word huios means son, and the word pig is hios. So the saying is, it's better to be one of Herod's eos than his huios, because he killed an awful lot of his sons. So that's who Herod was. Herod had a lot of power. He was afraid people would take it away from him. He spent his whole life accumulating it. He clung to it. And then we read this story where people visit him and say, "Hey, we're going to worship the new king," as if saying, "Would you like to come along?" Do you think it's possible to give up that power? You're not too far gone, you know. Is it possible to worship someone else, to let someone else be in charge? A funny thing about power to me is that it's so addictive. We like to be in control. We like to be in charge. We like to feel like our wishes and wants are, at least everyone considers them, and hopefully in the end that's what we'll get. Some of you hear me talk about power, though, and you say, well, how would I know if it's addictive? I don't have power. My wife has power. We hear power and we imagine kings and thrones, but really there is power found in all of our human relationships. In every conversation, every structure, every choice we make. And this is because in human interactions, it always involves some sort of influence, some sort of negotiation. Someone is going to be made vulnerable. Someone's always going to come out on top. Someone's decision is going to be followed. It's not a bad thing. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you it's just something that happens. Two friends have a conversation, and one of them is going to become the talker, and the other is the listener. We have teachers and students. We have pastors and congregants. If you enter into a serious relationship, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, to get hurt, in order to talk as equals. You invite someone into your house, and there's another power dynamic there. Wipe your feet. Mother and daughter talk on the phone. One of them sets the conversation for the rest, sets the mood for the rest of the conversation. A grown son can say a careless sentence, and his parents will think about it all afternoon. Believe me, I've been there. I know what that's like. A parent can make one small comment to their adult child, I don't see you much anymore. And all of a sudden, the child feels 10 years old again. My dad one time said, you know, no matter how old I get, when I go home, I'm always just a kid. I remember one time a guy told me he would get very upset with his wife when she started crying during an argument. He'd say, I'd be winning an argument too, and I could know exactly what to say, but all of a sudden she starts crying and she wins. That's it. It's unfair. Say, I had you though, you have to admit. But tears, they fix everything. It occurs to me, being in the position of life that I'm in, I have two older children who are at that age of 19 and 20. Are they adults yet? Are they not? One way or the other, they're children who are becoming not children anymore. And I start to see those power dynamics in a different way, as I'm sure we all do. We start to see things we haven't seen before. When we're adults and young parents, we have power over our children. And that's a good thing, by the way, right? We need to teach them. We're the authority. We raise them to be equals with us, or at least we think we do. But sometimes we tend to get upset when we're not that authority anymore, and they become their own authority. A grown-up son or daughter gets in an accident, and the mother and father are really taken aback when they wake up and the first ones they ask to see is not their mom and dad, but their wife and children. It's an odd feeling to have a child grow up and realize that you're not the power, the authority anymore in their lives. And further, to even say, I guess that's a good thing. I guess. And as we grow even older, that power shifts again, this time with our children making the decisions for us, being the ones that take care of us. And you should not doubt this, by the way. It's also difficult on the other end as a child. I know this too from personal experience, to realize that it's not you who depend on your parents anymore, but in many ways them who depend on you. And that might have been the most remarkable thing that I saw in my parents this Thanksgiving. What I witnessed was not just my father taking control of and taking care of my mother, but my mother letting him. And I think that a lot of us know what that means, to let someone else do things for us, and probably not in the way that we would like them done. It's irritating. I said earlier that the Christmas story was about giving up power, But even more than that, it's about relationships. It's about giving up that power to mend relationships, to fix relationships, to have relationships. Because this is what God did. And that's what God asks us to do. And we look at this story today and think Herod was asked to give up a kingdom. Sometimes we're just asked to do something someone else's way. And in many ways, I guess they can be equally difficult. Relationships are difficult. It seems like there's always a struggle for who is in control. And if we're going to get treated the way we think we should be treated, or if we're ultimately going to get what we want. But I see a lot of hope in this story, and that's why I wanted to share this with you today. You see, Christmas, though, is counterintuitive, because we think that the hope would be that one day we'll rule the world, or at least we're going to be in charge. At least we'll be in control of our own destinies. One day we're going to regain our strength. We're going to regain our mental faculties. We're going to regain our youth. And what that really means is that we hope for one day when we'll regain our power. But Christmas shows us that the real hope is that we can give up that control. We can let others take care of us. We can appreciate the power shift with our children or our loved ones. See, Herod was unable to give up his power. He was unable to become vulnerable, but in doing that, he also destroyed his relationships. Jesus let go of his power, allowed himself to become less so that others could become more, and because of that, he opened the door to have true relationship with him. And so Advent asks us, in which of those two stories do you find hope? Let's pray.